and welcome to Plus One to Gaming. I'm Chris.
I'm Eric.
I'm Billy.
And I'm Mark.
And we've got Loki joining us once again in the capacity of DM as he runs us through the Light of Xaryxis campaign, the adventure that's included with the new Spelljammer set. So Loki, you're going to run us through a zero session before we jump into the adventure. So I'm going to pass the mic over to you so you can lead us through your zero session.
Outstanding. So let's start off with a couple of things. First of all, we are not going for an adult-oriented campaign, although it might get a little R-rated here and there with the violence. It is D&D after all. One thing I always like to find out right off of the gate with the zero session, are there any subjects that should possibly be avoided due to triggering issues and other such?
I think generally as a table, we stay away from anything overtly sexual or anything that involves slavery or just the general sensitive issues. They don't come up as subjects in our games.
Okay. Now let me encourage all of my players. Should something like that come up, please feel free to go, hey, can we have a timeout and talk about this? I always want people to be having fun at my table. For those of you that are tuning in from elsewhere, we are going to be picking this up in the Forgotten Realms, a setting known and loved by many. Now, a couple of quick tweaks for our guys at our tables. A 1 is always going to result in something bad or ridiculous happening to you, no matter what type of roll it is. A 20 will likewise have a small stroke of good fortune. A 20 is not always an automatic hit. If a 20 plus your 2 hit will not hit the armor class of the creature, that's not a crit. You'll get something lucky out of it, but it's got to be able to hit to be a crit. And if you hear mewing in the background, that's the cats. They're the Cody.
They pay a visit to me as well when I'm recording.
Yeah.
Indeed. At this point, we're basically keeping the table open to all the 5e published rules. We have an artificer from Eberron in here, among other players. Now, gentlemen, any rules, questions, or anything like that before we start digging into characters and such?
I know we typically, as just our general house rule, we use a flanking rule. Just as part of our general combat mechanics. Billy you might be able to speak more to it, but just curious if that's something we want to include in our games, or do we all want to just run it by Loki's rules? Or
I generally say if you've got the characters in flanking positions, I stick with the old school way. The flanking characters get that +1 bonus. So yeah.
Cool. Anything else, guys?
I don't think so. I'm sure stuff will come up, especially with the new setting.
Did you keep track of weight? We don't really usually do encumbrance as long as you're not doing anything ridiculous, and we don't.
As a matter of fact, hold on a second. I'm going to pull up another tab here while I talk to you that has a few of my house rules on it to make sure that we don't miss out on anything. Now, as far as encumbrance goes, I generally eyeball it. If you're being preposterous, I'm going to call you on it, or your bag's going to break and you're going to be picking up stuff while the orcs show up. Things like that. But no, as a matter of fact, we're going to be, as part of this, making sure that you guys have a magic item or two to make sure you're right for 5th level. And one of you guys is definitely getting a bag of holding for that exact reason.
With that, what was I going to ask? What about spell casting too, and components, that type of thing?
Components I generally hand wave, and get a general component pouch, and then anything that's above a couple of gold that you're going to need to buy individually and tracking. General components, not so much.
Cool. Along the lines of tracking other things, I had a question about things like ammunitions, and also kind of normal odd things that I feel like we don't usually do, which is anything along the lines of time passing out of game, the lifestyle mechanics, all of those. And when we have a ship and stuff like that, you take care of it.
Generally with the downtime stuff, it'll be you guys have, say, 3-week layover while you're stuck on Hakatha repairing the ship or something, and I'll get an idea what you guys want to try and achieve, and then we'll see what the dice say about possible interruptions. And pretty much, I fast forward and montage through a lot of the boring parts. It's like, okay, so you traveled for 2 weeks, and for the middle 5 days of it, you were miserable and soaked to the skin because it wouldn't stop raining. Next scene.
Yeah.
In encumbrance more often encumbers fun, so I generally ignore it. Hence the bags of holding and such. Let's see. Other questions.
One thing I've always wondered about, which I guess is more an issue starting out, is you gave us our 625 or whatever I think it was gold. What's the best way to find out how much things will actually cost? Especially when it comes to anything, magical beyond what's labeled as, like a 1 gold piece dagger, etc.
As far as that goes, that stuff can be spent on non-magical gear. You can use the prices right out of the core rules.
Does that include like potions of healing when we say non-magical?
No, I was going to say potions of healing are the one exception to that.
I might make an update to my character sheet then.
Because I need to give back 600 gold.
And we'll get to the other nifty stuff later, but you might want to scribble down on the side that each of you does start off with a potion of healing in your gear. It's real simple. 625 non-magical gear and potions of healing only. Use the prices straight out of the core rules. You're rock solid.
Cool. So I can't buy magical items with that.
No. Everybody's going to get an item or two, but that's my pick.
Yeah. Okay.
And you had also mentioned that you could +1 armor or to a weapon as well as part of that.
Yeah, I saw that. I gave myself a +1 pistol.
Yeah, so on that line, we can talk about it there. Is that since I don't wear armor and don't use weapons, I was hoping to use that for just a ring of protection.
No. In the case of our plasmoid monk, and by the way, I love the name.
Blobby.
As far as our plasmoid monk, you're actually very astute because that's exactly what I was going to assign you.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I just was going to see whether you wanted something that would give you a +1 to hit or a +1 to your AC.
No, AC. Okay. I think is more appropriate. So,
it's really funny. My other game I'm running this in, one of the characters is a former chef, and he was going to play a plasmoid monk, but he changed his mind at the last minute. So I love seeing this character here.
I was going to make him the chef. I was going to give him the chef feat instead of the tough feat, but I was like, I don't know. I still may because his constitution's so low, he's got shit hit points, and I'm like, I kind of need the tough just to be survivable. But I really wanted I wish that I could get both, obviously, but can't.
Well, that's what level ups are for.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I will never take. I am not a ability point level upper. I'm 100% feats when
feats
I
all the way.
Up. Yeah, feats are just more fun.
All right. So what I want to do to start off with is we're going to do a little bit of a round robin here first with just the quick thumbnail background on what the character is, tiny bit about the background, and then we're going to start sewing some things together before we start. So why don't we start with you, Chris?
Sure. I mentioned it on the probably past episodes before, but I'm playing an Astral Elf Warlock. I wanted to try everything from Spelljammer, so I pulled the race, the background, and tried to pick a patron that would just make sense for an Astral Elf. So Astrid the Morningstar, she was the daughter of a decorated commander and upcoming military prodigy, and was given command of a small attack frigate centuries ago. But during a high-stakes standoff at a blockade, she was false flagged, sort of tricked into attacking the alliance she was ordered to protect by a Githyanki Starseer. As a result, many innocent lives were lost, and the Githyanki were able to sort of rout the blockade and then insert their power. So by the laws of her people, she was sentenced to death, but her father, who was a high-ranking military commander, was able to just pull his weight, and she was exiled instead. stripped of her family name, Everbright, given the disgrace titled Morning Star, and was left on a raft to just drift in the astral sea to wallow in her guilt for all eternity or until the sea claims her. And she drifted for many years until she happened upon a dying celestial who pitied her suffering and granted her recompense by spreading its remaining light to those in need across the galaxy. So she traveled for a time drifting with the celestial, learning its secrets and receiving its gifts until it dropped her off closer to civilization to fulfill her pact and redeem her sins. I picked the Celestial because I didn't want her to be like a dark warlock. I didn't want her to be this like edgelord. She's got things in her past that she needs to resolve and that haunts her, but she's not somebody that's going to be like withdrawn from the party. She's primarily a healer, but she has, of course, those warlock powers.
Outstanding. Good use of the astral elf background and expanding on it.
Thanks. There was one technique I wanted to share that I read this article. It was like whatever DM or whatever player could learn from South Park, from a DM standpoint. And they broke down like how these South Park episodes work, where it's like this thing happens and it's not like a yes and, because that kind of leads you down this interesting path, but it's like what obstacles come up. So it's like, she was a commander, but this thing happened. Then as a result, and it's always these like causal things, which really, I've never used this method for creating a backstory before, but after reading this article, which I'll share, I think it just helped me create like a more interesting backstory, at least in terms of like how I approached it. So I thought that was just like a fun technique that I've never used before that sort of helped as I started with just like bullet point outline and then tried to add meat to it.
Well, adding points of conflict like that is what drives interest in a story. Conflict is where the fun stuff comes up. So excellent technique. All right, so who wants to speak up next?
I'll popcorn. Can we do that? The person who goes gets to popcorn to the next.
Oh, there you go.
I'll popcorn Mark.
Well, I knew it. He saw me still working on my character sheet over here. So, my character is a autognome cleric scavenger named Hum, Hum, which comes from an acronym that was given to him by his creator, which stands for Healing Unit Mobile. He was crafted aboard a ship called the Tenebrescence by a gnome named Nigel Twinbach. Unfortunately, that was only a fortnight before the ship was set upon by raiders, which they tried to fight off, but eventually crash landed. Him did his best to do the work he was made to do, which is patch. He spent incalculable days oscillating between patching up humanoids and the crew during the day, and then at night he would try to patch up the ship. Neither project had much hopes of working out, but he wasn't crafted to consider lost causes, so he didn't really notice. Upon returning to his crash zone one morning, Hume discovered that the Tenebrescence had been ransacked and the bodies of his crew spirited away. He stood there in the sunrise. To the left, he could see heel marks being drug off through the dirt. In the right, he could see the track marks trailing off with bolts and pieces of his ship scattered as if they'd fallen off. He stood there, he calculated for a moment, started tromping along, picking up pieces of the ship as he followed off, scavenging, telling himself that Nija needed the vessel patched. And that's kind of where he comes from. So he's set off basically as a scavenger to try to, collect forgotten things. That's his main draw now. He feels himself to be kind of a forgotten thing, so he identifies with objects and might find value in them for sentimental construct reasons, maybe not necessarily value in, a normal sense of the word. And
Bit of a junker.
Yeah. So that's kind of his background. And he's a a healer, obviously, and not very experienced, which is key because neither am I. So we work that in thematically to cover up my failings. And yeah, that's pretty much it, I think.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Who you popcorning to?
Let's go to Bill.
All right. Yeah. So old Blobby Fay is a plasmoid. He was a deckhand on a GIF arms smuggler, just general, trader called the Void Runner, captained by a GIF named Atiak. And during their travels, the Void Runner ventured a little bit into, more dangerous space to trying to get away from pursuers, and was attacked by a cosmic horror. The cosmic horror completely destroyed the ship, and the air bubble, everything was all gone. Just because he was a plasmoid, he was able to hold his breath longer than everybody else. Everybody else perished. He was drifting through space for, it seemed like eternity to him, but probably 45 minutes to an hour, until he landed on the husk of a dead god. And he stayed on this husk of a dead god, clinging to life for a few days. And in that time, he received this vision of this dead god husk. I don't know. He thinks that he was able to pierce the veil and see into the astral plane, where like the remnants of this old god had enough power to give it form. And he saw these appendages and tendrils and this grandiose being that he still doesn't understand. And he has dedicated his life to try to restore this dead god. He thinks that that's his mission. He was brought to it. Of course, he was rescued from that husk from a passing, ship, and he doesn't know anything about who the god was or what its name is even. But he just knows that in his mind it was destiny, and he has become a monk, dedicated to this old god.
Outstanding. I guess there's not too many directions for the popcorn to go now.
Yep.
So the character I'm playing is Ishmael the Hadozi. He is an artificer, and his subclass is Forge Adept. Ishmael grew up in a port town. His father was a sailor and a drunk. Ishmael was always taking things apart to see how they worked. So even from a young age, he had the natural curiosity of an artificer. He soon got a job on his first ship as a deckhand. He and his father worked on several different voyages to make money at different jobs. One of the voyages, pirates attacked and killed everyone, including his father. Ishmael survived by hiding in the space between the hull and the inner rooms. The pirates took almost everything of value and scuttled the ship. So Ishmael was able to repair the ship enough to get to the next safe port. This repair brought him into the view of the Artificers Guild, and more specifically the Shipwrights Guild. So Ishmael joined the Shipwrights Guild, learned his trade. He now takes on voyages as a deckhand or an engineer, kind of whatever he can get, whatever work he can get. He has grand plans of owning his own ship and to kill the pirates that killed his crew.
I did have a question for Ishmael. Is he a drinker too?
Ishmael, I think, is a drinker, yes. We talked a little bit earlier before we started recording. Yeah. I was building this character out and got excited. Like I can see this character. So as I was working through a voice, trying to figure it out, I ended up like looking up Rocket Raccoon's voice and then realized that's almost exactly what this character is. So I did not base him off of that, but the archetype.
Well, you're 6 foot tall for one thing.
He's 5 foot tall.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger than Rocket.
The temperament, I think, is similar. Like I went through all of the background temperaments, and he's a little hot-headed. He's not trusting of people. But once you're in, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's a little quick to anger. And so I was looking for those types of accents and voices that would like play to that well, and
one of my old players back in the 90s when Spelljammer first hit said that he found Hadoji's very easy to play because as far as he was concerned, all Hadoji were from New York.
So,
most of our characters and most of our games are from New York or the
yeah. So that is like I spent the morning working on a Brooklyn accent, because that's it. Like, and it's
you
weird.
Want a cup of coffee? Come on, let's go get a cup of coffee, huh?
Yeah, and it's weird because I feel like I don't know if Xyzel is exactly New York, but it might be too close to another character that I do. Yeah.
You're in a world where none of the places are real. So if the accent is off, it's actually really off.
Exactly.
Accurate because you invented the own accent.
Yeah. I can only do like 5 accents, so we're gonna have repeats.
But trying to keep Ishmael from Xyzel from being Xyzel.
It's gonna be tough. Yeah. So I might try to make Ishmael's voice a little higher pitched, so at least there's that difference.
Yeah.
There was a game where I was in college that was a bunch of multilingual people, and so they designated the different languages for the different fantasy languages and other such. And so the DM, to really put a spin on the setting, made Elvish German and Elvish Welsh, and it changed the vibe substantially.
That's cool.
Across the game.
Yeah, you got to have some bilingual players to be able to pull that off.
We've talked in our like homebrew, the standard accent is what is it? Like Boston?
Boston.
Yeah, it's Boston.
Yeah,
Boston. It's in Boston.
Although you gotta get box of Spelljammer.
Yeah. When we played Mark's Star Wars campaign, we used made up voices, made up languages, which was a fun experiment. Just talking gibberish.
That was fun. It's just hard to keep.
I'm not a dedicated enough DM to learn Klingon or Esperanto.
Yeah.
We just said things that were like sounded Star Wars-ish,
You
alien-ish.
did a good job on that. Yeah, yours was really good.
Did.
Mark did a great job too.
I wrote shit. Like the way I pulled that out was by having Word documents that were nonsense, like lorem ipsum, that I was able to read in an accent.
Yeah, that's what you do as a DM. That's the gift. All right, well, let's get back on track with the zero session. Loki, take us away.
So, outstanding. Okay, so we've got you guys now. The everybody meets in a bar thing has been done to death. If it were a steak, it would be shoe leather at this point. And since we're starting off with you guys at a reasonably high power level, we are going to begin by figuring a couple of things out. So, as far as the dice go, to start off with, and it makes good sense, Ishmael, Hadoji tend to be we're going to play them like they were in the old version, tend to be very smart ass. They tend to have very, very sharp tongues with pretty much everybody except the elves, who they get along great with. Matter of fact, Hadoji are mentioned as one of the only species besides elves you'll run into occasionally on the elven ships in the fleet in the old version of the game. So we're going to start off with Astrid, our warlock, and Ishmael. You guys already know each other because you have shipped out once before on a ship as a hired crew. So you've got a connection there where you know each other. And let's see. Ishmael, you and Hume have shipped out together twice so far on separate missions. That's the nice thing about having a bunch of spacers. And I'm going to explain. We're going to set up the way we are. And then let's see. And Blobby Flay. Blobby Flay. You know Astrid from hanging out on the Rock of Brawl. Never worked together, but you guys know each other then. All right. So that gives us a couple of connections, which is easier with freelance crew to arrange in this fashion. Now, a lot of times what I will do is I'll start off maybe the first 20 to 30 minutes of the session having everybody playing in character, just sitting around interacting with each other. Get your rhythm down a little bit. Get the hey, we know each other thing down a little bit. The difference in the way we're going to start off from what's in the book is purely based on the fact we want to use the new rules, and the adventure really doesn't for characters. The conceit of Xaryxis for DMs out there is that you're taking a groundling party to space for the first time. These are all spacer races, classes, etc. We want to play with fun tools.
Sorry to throw a wrench in your plan, Lokis.
Oh, no. This is what I wanted. Okay. So instead of starting off on your home world and such, you guys are in port and ran into each other for various reasons. A couple of you are there on trade runs. Your gig with this particular ship has ended, and so on. I'll figure that out to give you a detail or two to hook into in just a moment. But that'll bring everybody together when we pick up hanging out, having lunch in Waterdeep. Okay, and that'll allow us to play through as close to what is written as possible and still use the fun toys. Question so far?
Yeah.
All right, outstanding. So let's take a look at one or two things. And all right, wake up. There we go. Okay. All right. So Hume, you are you were in port. Your contract with a trading vessel out of Baral has come to an end, and you decided to hang out and enjoy some shore leave. Astrid, your luck kind of sucks.
Oh no.
Your luck kind of sucks. Not only do you have a rough background of being stranded in the Astral and other such, but your ship limped into port and is currently in dry dock after having the dog shit beat out of it by a bunch of Nyogi.
As it is happening on the Astral Sea.
Y'all just barely got away. So if you are a drinker, you are probably in the mood for a cocktail or a Bloody Mary at this point, at the very least. All right.
Actually, I hadn't thought about that. That's interesting.
Whether you're a drinker or not?
Yeah. Just because, like, if she's got, like, a hard past, I feel like maybe she would. Because, like, the person, would, like, wouldn't even think about that. But that's just an interesting. Yeah, she's going for a hard drink for sure.
It can go either way. You know, me, I was never a big drinker. But when I had my divorce 5 years ago, I pretty much kind of put it down and never picked it back up and don't really miss it.
Yeah.
You know? All right. So, Blobby Faye, you actually were also at the end of your contract and are hanging out here because of the potential for recipes and such. And then let's see, our last one here. Who haven't I covered? Ishmael. And Ishmael, you've been hanging out in the port here, picking up some odd jobs, working on some of the Spelljammer ships, including Astrid's very, very fried out and messed up galleon at the moment, which is how you ran into her, and you guys know you're both in Waterdeep at the same time. So that gives us a little bit of a web of connections there, and I will be utilizing the NPCs and other such that y'all have created for your backgrounds. Yeah. And so out of all of you guys, it is only Blobby Faye and Ishmael that have actually spent any time in Waterdeep before. You know, for the rest of y'all, it's mostly been space stuff. It's like, oh, groundling, city's supposed to be cool. Let's go check it out.
How novel.
Before we get started, we are going to Ishmael, you're the one carrying tons of tools and stuff like that around. I think that your character needs to have a bag of holding. Where I said I was going to be distributing a few niceties and toys here and there.
He's got an actual bag of holding for you. He's going to give it to you. Here you
go. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. It can be in a backpack configuration. As long as you list it as a bag of holding and not a handy haversack, you're pretty gold. All right.
Some things on our avatars are just strictly for flavor. Well, I guess it's tougher for Bill because if he's using an unarmed,
I don't have any.
Monk.
I don't have any items that I can't just absorb and keep with me. So,
all right. So we are going to we're going to kick you off. Blobby Flay, you, my friend.
You get a set of magical chef knives.
No, you've got a nice set of masterwork chef's knives. One of which might be serviceable as a dagger if needed in combat. But it's your wonderfully embroidered and beautifully decorated cloak of protection that is probably the nearest and dearest to your heart.
Is it like a chef's apron?
Oh, it can be. Yeah. The apron of protection.
Yeah. The apron of protection. Perfect.
I just love seeing like a monk blob wearing a chef's apron.
Well, no. Don't think of it as a monk blob. Think of it as a chef blob with an unerring ability to slap the crap out of you across the pass shelf during dinner service.
As any good ship's chef should be able to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's hard. Ship chef.
All right, let's see. So that's blobby.
Plasmoid ship chef. Plasmoid ship chef.
And
Out of several has OD.
the ship's chef on the seashore. All right, and then we are going to see. Okay, so Ishmael. Actually, I had a Gamma World character with that name at one point. It's a name that goes back to Old Testament times. Yes,
That's where I thought you got it from. It's called me Ishmael. Yeah.
Someone else reads Melville. I approve wholeheartedly. Yes. Hey, Tom Cateret. See, it's not just me. Ishmael being practical and reasonably well traveled. You have hanging on your belt a decanter of endless water.
Ooh.
You got to have some fun toys to create some scenes with.
Be interesting for an artificer.
And then, all right, and what do you want?
Oh yeah, the Doctor Who screwdriver thing.
Oh, the Omni tool?
Oh,
no,
yeah.
we'll put that on the list of things for you to hunt for down the line.
Everybody wants one of those.
Oh.
All right, now, Astrid, you're bouncing around and so on has definitely given you some interesting travels and such. And while you're originally managed to sneak your elven boots out during your exile, they have long since been destroyed during your misadventures.
Taketh and giveth away.
You have, however, discovered that there is nothing quite so much fun during shipboard combat as the boots of striding and springing that you stripped off a corpse of a pirate you took out a few adventures after you lost your boots.
Way more comfortable. Just turn into a hopping warlock.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm already starting to hear the Warner Brothers sound effect.
Leaping ship to ship.
Pew, pew.
Leaping from tree to tree.
Oh, man. Cast magic mouth on those boots, and every time you jump, it goes boing.
That sounds great.
And then that brings us to Hume. You guys are already reminding me of one of my other groups. Okay, and Hume, you have hidden away in your various gear. You have a vial of oil of sharpness.
Ooh.
All right, so that's the primary magic item stuff. In addition to that, Astrid, you have a necklace. It is non-magical. It's a nice elven wrought silver chain. But the reason that it is so near and dear to your heart and so very special is that the small, looks like a pearl almost, that's hanging on it is actually a polished tiny piece of that dead god. Okay.
Is that also her arcane focus, or could it be?
It can be if you like.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I had. I had like an amulet for her arcane focus, so that actually plays into it perfectly.
Okay.
Like as her connection to the
Yeah, I mean, whatever you do to enchant or modify it down the line, that's entirely on you. You receive it. It's special. It's nifty. It's non-magical until you make it now.
Perfect.
All right, let's see. All right, Ishmael. What are you using for weapons again, Ishmael?
What's it called? Oh, I'm looking at somebody else's thing. Proficiency with weapons or with guns, and he has a Morning Star, but it's a wrench.
Outstanding.
But the stat block is Morning Star, so he's basically walloping people with his like crescent wrench.
I love it. That's absolutely perfect. Okay, so with him,
yeah, I didn't think he was going to be like much of a fighter, so I didn't want to have like an axe. Didn't really make sense for him to be lugging around fixing the ship up.
But it's always good to go bouncing through the rigging and cold cock as someone who's trying to board your ship.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm thoroughly down with that. Your pistol is actually of sentimental value to you. It was your father's, and it's exotic wood from another star system, someplace called Gray Space. And carved into the wood of the handle, or the pommel, to use your proper terminology, is kind of a center outwards engraving of the planets of the realm space system that you guys are starting.
Sweet.
All right, so let's see. That means I still need Hume. Is that it? I'm taking care of the rest of you guys, right? Okay. Hume. Oh, you have with you one of the things that the gnomes are very big on is canning and other such. And having more than a little bit of gnome in your background, of course, you would be carrying around 3 small cans of Spelljammer. And for those of you that are new to things, there is a reason that the gnomes raise the giant space hamsters.
Oh, that's my call.
Spayham.
So yes, you have 3 cans of Spayham with you.
Okay.
Which you keep trying to inflict on people because it's a delicacy where you come from.
I love that.
You've got that, and you've also got the log with you from your original ship. And if you can ever figure out where this iron piece place that the gnomes originally came from is, your goal, one of your side goals there is to, if you can ever find it, deliver it to his wife and let her know what happened. All right, so that's one big magic item, one small thing there, and you're gonna give each of y'all one other small thing. Ishmael, you have, let's see how kind the dice are to you. The dice are 00 kind.
Is that little kind or lots of kind?
Your other little treasure is a letter of recommendation from Erdana Shipwright, who runs the shipyards on the Rock of Brawl. By the way, the Rock of Brawl in this campaign, for our listeners, is located in the Tears of Saloon, Dalton Space. All right, so we have got that. Mm-hmm. I've got a good one for you here. You have 2 doses of a very specialized antitoxin. There is a GIF delicacy called Yanish, which is their favorite celebratory food and other such, and GIF are vegetarians. Yanish is kind of like it's kind of like the bastard son of old troll's piss, kerosene, and kimchi.
Yeah. And
as a conceit of my campaign that I'm bringing over, because this was invented by a player of mine who passed away a few years ago, GIF eat it all the time. Any non-GIF have to eat an antitoxin with it, because to all non-GIF, it's basically poisonous as hell. But being the gourmet and the gourmand you are, you want to be able to eat with the GIF and sample all of it. So you've actually got, let's make it 3 doses. It'll only work on the Yanish.
That's funny. I love that.
That's really funny.
All right. Hey, I try and make sure y'all have fun stuff to play with.
That's really cool.
All right, let's see. And so Astrid next and Hume. Okay, Astrid, okay, Astrid, in your case, it's going to be a sort of a double header. First of all, on the back of your neck, about 2 inches tall, there is a brand because you were a traitor and an exile. All right. Now, in addition to that,
No, that makes perfect sense that she would have been like labeled or branded.
Oh, like I said, y'all give me the perfect amount of backstory to work with. I can build with all of this stuff as we go.
It's nice to know the stuff that we practice or that we preach in practice actually works. Yay!
Hey, man, I think we're going to get along very well as a group. We have a lot in common as far as the way we approach things. In addition to that, you have a letter of credit, which you won in a card game or a dice game or something along those lines. You can figure out for yourself whether it's 3 Dragon Ante or what. But it's basically a 10 gold piece bar tab at the Rock Rat, which is a messed up, crappy dive bar in the docks on the Rock of Brawl, known for, oh, it's Thursday, it's Brawl night.
All right.
They are famous for a very, very large, well-spoken ogre bouncer by the name of Grinder.
That's appropriate. Drinks are on.
And let's see, I've got everybody except Hume. And your smith tools, which you salvaged from your crashed ship, used to be the prized possession of the gnome who was in charge of the helm, which was used as a backup when the giant hamster wheel engines of the side wheeler weren't working.
Of course, there's giant hamster wheels.
Come on, man. So while they're not enhanced or anything, they are of the very finest manufacture, and they also were stamped with a mark from a prior owner a long time ago. And the mark in question was a fairly legendary inventor amongst the Tinker Gnomes, a character by the name of Acme Ronco Cattell.
Write that down.
Cattell.
Yeah,
Acme
remember
Ronco
the old
Cattell.
the Cattell record albums? Am I dating myself here?
A little. We don't know that.
No, not a little, a lot. Let's just be honest.
Got the Acme reference.
Buddy of mine came up with the greatest Tinker Gnome name ever.
Awesome.
All right, so that gives us a little bit more in the way of toys and a little bit more in the way of flavor. Questions, comments, criticisms, lies, alibis, bad jokes, requests, anything.
Just quick comment. Even though we were making just like small fine tuning adjustments, overall, like I'm super happy just the way everything was able to fit into the setup. So just appreciate those small adjustments and taking the time to like look into the character sheets and like really in very short amount of time. Like we got these to you basically within days. Yeah. But in just a very short amount of time, being able to pull in like very compelling ties and links. All that stuff. So thank you for that. That's it for this week's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and head over to +1togaming.com for more live discussions, actual plays, character creation tips, and more. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.